Hi, my name is Kelly Africa, and this is Heavy Chef. Today we're talking to a student entrepreneur called Tamir. Tamir is balancing both an engineering degree at UCT as well as a startup called Quillo. In essence, Quillo is a marketplace that facilitates the exchange of textbooks at a university level. Today, we're here to find out how, in fact, Tamir, at 22 years old, is managing to balance these two extremely demanding roles. So we're talking to Tamir. Yeah, you're going to tell me your surname one more time.
Shklaz.
Shklaz, and that is, as you said, it's from Poland, right?
Yes, Polish surname. Means glassmaker, funnily enough.
Okay, so you obviously come from a heritage of glassmakers in Poland, right? Yeah. So my surname is van der Kolk, and it means from the chalk, which I'm still trying to work out exactly.
Teacher?
I think it must have been a chalk mine or something to do with in Holland back in the day.
Maybe.
But yeah, we'll figure that out. So you're a student and you're an entrepreneur. So in essence, you're a student entrepreneur, which is time-wise quite demanding. How are you balancing the two?
It's been a very tough process, kind of learning how to balance it.
Sure.
But I think the biggest key that I realized as to how to balance it came to me when I was studying for exams in first year and second year.
Sure.
Where I'd sit down for my maths exam, I wouldn't have a good understanding of the syllabus, and I would cover all of it within a week.
Sure.
And speaking to some of my friends that have very similar experiences where they would be so far behind, they have no idea what's going on.
Sure.
And in a week, they're able to write the exam. And that thought really then triggered a bit of a process and of learning and discovering that you waste so much time.
Sure.
You sit in lectures, you don't pay attention, you go home, you daddle through your assignments or copy your friend, you're not actually engaging in the material. So what I learned through that is that if you simply apply your mind mindfully,
sure,
and you actually focus on the work that you're doing, you can cover it.
Sure.
And I think that was the first insight, and then just practice.
Sure.
Practice as to how to get through material quicker.
Sure.
And another big tool has just been prioritizing.
Sure.
Using principles such as like the 80-20 rule, which talks that 80% of the outcome comes from 20% of the work. So focusing really on the 20% of the work that's going to have that 80% of the outcome.
Sure. And I mean, I need to ask you, are any of your contemporaries following this? Are they actually stepping up and saying, like, we're interested in doing this? Or is this something that you're seeing within yourself and a couple of other student entrepreneurs?
I'm actually finding it very frustrating amongst my peers, where I know the kind of, like, I'll be balancing investor meetings and meeting with VCs and then software development and then an assignment and a test. And I still know that I would have the time to go and see them for a drink or whatever, but they say no, they've got assignments, they've got tests. And there's a little bit of bitterness knowing that they're not managing their time correctly.
Sure.
So I find it's not necessarily used across the board.
And in terms of your why, I mean, there's a need for you, I see, to optimize your time, to do something with your time while you're here on planet Earth. Where does this come from? If you delve deep inside your own psyche, where is this coming from?
A strong desire not to be ordinary.
Sure.
And just a really strong passion to change the world, and knowing that there exist so many problems that just kind of sit dormant and people aren't tackling them or kind of wait. They think they need to get a job and need to find something else before they tackle something they're really passionate about.
Sure.
Which is just so frustrating.
So when you're walking around on a day-to-day basis, are you seeing problems continually? Is that the way that your mind works?
I would say so. I'd like to believe so.
Sure.
I'd also like to think I'm seeing solutions, and looking at problems in a different lens that other people are thinking about them. But certainly, there's just so much unnecessary human suffering that exists that could be attributed to human laziness.
Great.
And that is just so frustrating.
Sure. And now tell me about Quillo. Tell me about the origin story. Where did you see this need to put this textbook exchange online, and specifically into a marketplace model?
So the idea initially came to me in first year when I arrived at my first physics lecture. I was very hungover from the night before, as a typical first year would be. And my lecturer tells me that I needed the following textbook. I think it was College or Physics for Scientists and Engineers.
Yeah.
I gave it a Google search, and the price of it was 1,300 rand. Simply just unaffordable.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try and find a cheaper means.
Sure.
So I dragged my hungover, limping self over to a notice board and found 1,002 adverts for 1,002 different things.
Yes.
Just an absolute mess.
Yes.
Eventually sorted through the mess, found the textbook I was looking for. It's already been sold. Repeated that process and eventually just grew sick of it and didn't, or rather resorted to buying the textbook new.
Sure.
At that moment, the thought occurred to me, if this was my experience coming from an affluent background, the experience of a university student being the first person in their family arriving at university with limited financial resources, going through that must just be the most overwhelming feeling in the world.
Sure. I think I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to say not everybody has this other-centric approach. Not everybody's thinking about how other people are experiencing things. Where does that come from? Was it a value that you believe is passed down to you through your parents, the way that you were raised? Or is it something to do with your curiosity?
It's a good question. I think everyone has it. Human beings are naturally empathetic humans, and that's the way we've evolved.
Yeah.
If we haven't evolved in a way that would mean community and a sense of belongingness or shared identity, we wouldn't see humanity where it is now. So I think it's intrinsic to humans.
Sure.
Everyone has it.
Sure.
And then perhaps, just being raised in an environment where I was taught to look out for my family, taught to look out for my friends. I was really lucky to have that kind of upbringing, and I think that definitely fed into me becoming more empathetic or thinking about others.
Great. I'm going to take you back to the tangible level of what Quillo actually does. So if I am a student, I now have 5 books from my courses in second semester of second year business science, which was actually the course that I studied, so I'm relating back. I'm now going into my 3rd year, and I need to get rid of these books. How do I actually go about putting them for sale on the Quillo site?
So it's as simple as going onto the website, registering with your email and the university that you're at, clicking on sell your textbook and taking some pictures, setting your price and clicking sell. And then it's up on the marketplace, available to thousands of potential buyers across South Africa.
Sure.
And then you simply wait for a person to show interest. They show interest, you confirm its availability, they pay.
Sure.
We take the money. We provide an escrow payment system, which is just a fancy way of saying we'll hold on to your money until both parties are happy.
Sure.
And once the textbook is transacted, either through the seller meeting the buyer in person,
sure,
or through delivery, a motorbike will arrive at your door, collect the book and send it to the buyer. The money then is transferred to your account.
And so you have a group of guys that are actually doing the delivery as well?
So we've partnered with a company called Pickup,
okay,
which is a really awesome company. They're like an Uber for delivery.
Amazing. I'm going to take you back now to your school years. How old are you at the moment?
22.
You're 22 years old. You're studying, can you repeat me exactly
Electrical and computer engineering.
You're studying electrical and computer engineering. Yeah. So when you went into studying this, what vision did you have for your life? What did you think you were going to do with it?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem that exists with the tertiary system, where people are forced to choose what they're going to study or do for the rest of their lives at the ripe young age of 18. But that's a whole other conversation. I'd actually love to dive into that. But for me, I knew I loved computers. I loved fiddling with stuff. It started for me with computer games. I used to play computer games competitively.
Sure.
I wasted thousands of hours in front of a screen. Perhaps not wasted, considering where I find myself.
Sure.
But that triggered a love for computers.
Sure.
I started to learn how to code, how to build stuff, and I knew I wanted to go into computers. So I was thinking of taking computer science, but I wanted something that would provide me with a stronger differentiating factor.
Sure.
And engineering seemed like the harder, more challenging degree.
Sure.
So I opted for that.
Sure. And I mean, now given the fact that you are balancing it and you're managing, do you foresee that you're going to complete your degree whilst running the entity?
Yeah, so I was very close last year to dropping out. I had a couple of conversations with my parents where I could definitely give them 1 or 2 more grey hairs.
Sure.
But they convinced me not to. And I think that was the best advice they could have given me.
Yeah.
I think I've learned how to manage my time now
sure,
sufficiently. and planning on finishing my degree this year,
Sure.
as well as growing this company to the biggest I can do.
And are you guys thinking of, tell me about your co-founder, first and foremost.
So his name is Quillo.
Sure.
I met him, he was one of the advisors at a sort of event when we're part of an incubator. And he really liked my energy and what we've built with the company. Sure. And he has an existing company called Excel at Uni,
sure.
which is a bursary management company. So they will support the bursary students of big corporates.
Sure.
So he has experience in the student ecosystem. He's aware of the problems and saw a particular opportunity that exists in what I've built.
So I'm hearing you that your passion really lies within the student ecosystem.
Yes.
You wouldn't take this book exchange outside of that ecosystem, for example?
I would. There's been discussions about it in terms of broadening it to general books and
sure.
such things, but I think it could stand to saturate it
sure.
too much, especially just focus.
Sure.
Given my limited time,
yeah.
one of the very important things I've realized is focus within
sure.
the company as well. So staying focused on university students
sure.
is beneficial, but it also aligns with my passion.
Sure.
And doing this has shown me that my passion exists in education
sure.
and in changing the way education is done, which hasn't been changed for over 100 years.
Sure, so perhaps this is actually an entry level into a range of bigger problems that you're going to solve
Precisely.
down the line, which is amazing. I mean, you've taken the first step, you're acting on it as a 22-year-old. I mean, if I was an investor, I would be throwing money at you, really. I mean, I think it's incredible what you're doing, so keep it up.
Thank you.
My question for you is, what's the worst advice that you've been given as an entrepreneur?
That is a good question. What's the worst advice?
Yeah.
Don't start this company now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe. A couple of people were saying, why are you doing this now?
Yeah.
And it depends, because perhaps for others, or for some people, taking this venture would have put the university at risk.
Sure.
If you're one that perhaps was struggling at university already,
sure.
and you didn't have a bit of more of a safety net,
sure.
then maybe this would be a bad idea
sure.
to start something like this. But this has unquestionably been the most fulfilling work I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And has taught me more than my degree could have ever taught me.
I'm going to take you back to your formative years. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Johannesburg,
sure.
In a not small,
yeah.
area called Victory Park.
Okay, I don't know Victory Park. Is it suburban households?
Yeah,
is
suburban.
It quite upmarket?
Yeah, really suburban, nice residential area, very family based. It was
sure.
right opposite the school, so the
sure.
whole community is kind of built around the school.
Sure. Can you describe yourself as a young child? Were you curious? Did you read a lot?
I gamed a lot as
yeah.
a young child. I remember finding myself very obsessed
sure.
with whatever I would do. So at first it was computer games.
Sure.
Then it changed into, as I started to realize there were problems with that, and my parents weren't too happy with me spending all my time playing games.
Sure.
It moved to other things, and the next thing was public speaking,
great.
Debating. Debating was a big one.
Yeah.
So I used to be very, and still am, very argumentative,
yeah.
strong opinion, and opinionated.
Sure.
And hardworking at school, I suppose.
Yeah.
Would focus on my studies and trying to get through the work.
Sure. I mean, and in terms of, what did your parents encourage you to do on a day-to-day basis, apart from not play computer games? Was there anything coming down from them where they say, like, you should start reading this? Were there any influences that...
Reading was a big one they pushed me to do. I've never been a big reader,
yeah.
And still have not. I've started reading more,
sure.
But my parents always told me I needed to read more and that my English marks would suffer.
Yeah.
And other than that, to focus on my friendships and building strong relationships sure. and my schoolwork.
And as a high school student, what subjects did you gravitate towards? What did you really enjoy?
The sciences, definitely.
Okay.
I remember AP Maths was by far my favorite course, or subject rather. Otherwise I took physics and IT and geography, so all things that's kind of studied the nature of things. And
sure.
That's definitely still where I find my passion.
Your passion,
today.
Yeah? Okay, great. And now your co-founder is how many years older than you?
He is 8 years older than me.
So what is he bringing to the table in your mind? I mean, what are the core skills that he's bringing into this student venture,
The biggest thing I would say is experience and an understanding of the market.
Sure.
So I'm incredibly energetic and passionate.
I can see.
Which means that like when it comes to this, I'm like, hey, I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to speak to those people. Let's build this. Let's build that.
Yeah.
So my energy is going kind of everywhere.
Sure.
So what he's really done is focus that.
Yeah.
It's been like, you're really passionate, really energetic.
Yeah.
You can achieve 10x the results if
Sure.
you focus on this thing.
Sure.
And because of his experience in the industry and his understanding of the industry,
Yeah.
he knows exactly what to focus on.
Great.
So that's been the biggest thing that he's brought in, as well as just I'm learning a lot from him in terms
Yeah.
of business and how to conduct yourself
Sure.
and such things. So having someone older has
Sure.
been a very useful tool in this journey.
And in terms of focus, I think in closing, what is Quillo's focus for the next 5 years?
So I think in the short term, it's about building the existing platform of textbooks. So
Sure.
in the short term, I would love to be able to say that no student in South Africa should ever need to worry about affording or
Sure.
accessing a textbook again.
Sure.
It just shouldn't be a question for students.
Sure.
So that's the short term, 2 years. Maybe that's too ambitious.
Yeah.
But in the long term, as I've talked about previously, I really want to align Quillo with my passion
Yeah.
and what I've identified there to be more inefficiencies in the industry,
Sure.
particularly education.
Sure.
It's just been a sector that hasn't seen change for 100 years. So it's about growing Quillo into a far broader ecosystem that starts to provide value for students. We've come up with a bit of a nice kind of catchline, I suppose, or our mission statement, which is Quillo exists to democratize information and resources at university in order to make university more meaningful.
Sure.
So it would be about using the success of the textbook platform as a springboard to other student needs to do exactly that.
And tell me about you moving forward. You mentioned to me that you're wanting to stay within the South African or African continent.
Yeah.
Why is this the case?
I think that requires a little bit more introspection on my part, why I'm so passionate about that. But the knee-jerk reaction is that just Africa's been neglected by a very strong digital revolution. There's so much money that exists in Silicon Valley and Tel Aviv and all these places that are focusing on problems that aren't like genuine to the human condition, like students not being able to afford to go to school.
100% agree with you.
And that's frustrating. And I think that so many people are captivated by that money and by that opportunity that they neglect what's here. And there's so much opportunity here. There's 1.5 billion people in Africa that haven't been served by the technological revolution that's serving Silicon Valley. And I think slowly entrepreneurs and VCs are going to start realizing that.
What do we do
Africa.
to get them here?
We need to show them that African businesses can change the world. And that requires African entrepreneurs, successful African entrepreneurs, to stay in Africa.
100%.
And to not be taken over by the glitz and glamour that exists elsewhere.
100%. I mean, when people are bringing
Glad it
back,
struck a nerve.
when people are bringing back replicas of their dead partners through AI is when you
Yeah.
start thinking, okay, no, seriously, we need to move these very, very smart people into a different market where
Yeah.
they start solving real world problems.
100%.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's completely exciting.
Yeah. And there exists I can't remember the exact problem, but there exists such a need for, or rather there's an oversupply of skills
Yeah.
that exists in these developed economies.
Yeah.
And such a demand for them that exists in Africa.
Yeah.
And people just can't see that I could make such a big difference as well as just satisfy my
Yeah.
need by focusing on
And also,
African
if we're obviously looking at where the developed world are going with AI,
Yeah.
then we start seeing quite significant problems moving forward. So if we don't move fast in getting people over here to solve these real world problems soon,
There's
you know,
an
we're looking
expiry
at-
date.
There is an expiry date. There's no doubt one. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for starting so soon, and hopefully you can inspire many more people at UCT to get going on this journey.